Uh-oh, in hopes that we wouldn't say it first, but truth must be told.
And the ancestors are looking out for us. God Hayes is exposing them, man.
Okay, you see that chair right there? See how big it is?
Yeah.
Now look at the Pope chair under it. Scroll down, look at the Pope chair under
Never have it been made so clear.
Young TV. Young.
We running the game right now.
Young TV.
Time to take over.
Young
We the hottest in the game. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button. If you just not tuned in.
TV.
Share, like on your Instagram, Facebook.
Young TV.
If you tuned in, we broadcasting live from 2030, baby.
Young TV. Young
Taking over the game, baby. Oh yeah.
Young TV.
Hit that like.
Young TV.
Get them likes up in the air, you heard me?
Young TV.
Ride by. Hotel Islam.
Young TV.
Assalamu alaikum. Flown lesson.
Young TV.
Hit that like.
Hey, y'all, we back with another banger. We got a lot of updates on the land, the Spain and Portuguese blackout. There are several things. Rod got the receipts. We coming with it tonight, y'all. If you're new to the channel, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. Hey, Rod, you want to make any announcements before you go in?
Yep.
Go ahead.
So what we're about to go over, y'all, is most of us in the high 90 percentile is totally oblivious and unaware that the United States corporation is the foreign occupying force of the Crown of England, specifically King George III, who financed both sides of the Civil War. Anybody that financed both sides can't lose. It's a win-win for them. No matter who win, they win. And what we looking at in front of us with the Trump, all this is going to come out in these receipts we're going to go over. But what we looking at, pull up the turtle for Turtle Island. So while we talking there, so they can see the turtle. So what we looking at is the dismantling of a police state that is an occupying foreign force on the land, usurping the rightful heirs. I got a post up on my Instagram and Facebook on jurisdiction. In that post, I'm gonna go to it in my phone because before we get started, it's something that y'all need to be aware of. I need to get the year right on this. That's the only reason why I'm going to the post. Nope, it's not in that post. So it might come up in the receipts we about to go over. But the Supreme Court ruled, and this was the case, is the heirs of Henry Turner of the Washita Demonja ruling that said that the corporation known as the United States does not own, remember this, does not own the land of Turtle Island, right? That's important because that's what Empress Verdiasi was using as her anchor in recovering the land. The problem is that she had infiltrators that slid in up under her, and as she got older in age, the younger ones didn't know the schemes, the infiltration strategies and tactics of the occupiers that was keeping them in power. So when they usurped Empress Verdiasi, then the next heir in line has to make all of the right moves in order to recover Turtle Island from the occupying force. Hey, that's the turtle that represents Turtle Island. It's also a calendar, and it's also a historical reminder to the tribes of the land that we are a diversified group of tribes, and that all of the tribes need to be reconstituted. And in the reconstitution of the tribes, anybody who has a tribe established and has not coronated their tribal mother, they behind. They need to be aware that the tribes of Turtle Island are primarily matriarchal. The only reason why you have all of these masculine chiefs out front is because of warfare. The tribal mothers of the Longhouse, right, decided to push the men out front because the colonizers had zero respect for women, and they would try to disregard the statements of the women until one of the men spoke up. Once the men started to speak up, the tribal mothers say, look, y'all handle these settlers, right? The goal is to try to avoid bloody warfare, but they came over for blood and wealth. They wanted to shed our blood on the land as a ritual, a bloodletting ritual. They wanted to create slaughterhouses on the land because those are bloodletting rituals. Let the blood flow, right? So the blood of the land is on the hand of the settlers and the colonizers. We was first colonized or attacked, I call it, by the Spanish conquistadors under the auspices of searching for a new world, right? So we have to understand what is an occupied territory, what is a police state, and how can we see this being played out in front of us in the public. Are they in order, young gun? Okay, you're gonna have to blow that up. Okay, right. Now, first, I asked the question to Google, what is a foreign occupation? Look what it say. A foreign occupation in the context of military and political affairs refer to the control and administration of a country or territory by a foreign military power. This control is typically achieved through the occupation of the territory by foreign armed forces, leading to the foreign power's authority over the region, right? Now, the key aspects of a foreign occupation: military control, the presence and authority of foreign military forces in occupied territory. How do we identify that, Elder? How do we see the foreign, don't go up yet, the presence and authority of the foreign occupying military? Do you know what they look like at large on the land? Elder, I'm talking to you. Elder. You on mute. Can you hear me, Elder? Nod your head, because I can't hear you. Anyway, I'm just going to keep going. So the presence of the people you call police is a foreign occupational army. The people you call the police is a foreign occupying army. They are boots on the ground. They are chartered out of London, England. They get their manuals are printed in London, England. Right? So that is the first identifier of the occupation is the presence of armed police. Now, comparative analysis to understand the difference from home policing and military policing. London has police. America got police. In London, the police don't have guns. In America, the police are armed just like the military. Remember, Tupac said all this stuff that the police got, the flak jackets, the mace spray, the baton, the firearms, the shotguns, the tactical vests, those are identifiers of a military agent, of a soldier. And he say, and I live next door to the criminals, and I ain't supposed to have none of this. There cannot be a double standard.
All right, Raw, there you go, man. My thing, it wouldn't let me unmute for some reason.
Mm-hmm. Go back to where we was at, Elder. Scroll back up.
Right here, right?
Okay, right.
Military control.
Now, yep. So we was on military control. So the presence of police, armed police with battle rams, military style SUVs with fully equipped tactical assault vehicles shows you that there is foreign occupiers on the land. Now, the second identifier of a foreign occupation is something called loss of sovereignty. The original government loses its ability to govern and the occupying powers assume the control. This was your 1776 installation of the foreign corporation that we supposed to believe is our government. What's next?
Wow.
International law considerations, right? Now pay attention. International law considerations. What do that mean? International humanitarian law governs the rights and duties of both the occupying power and the protected population in the occupied territory. This is the establishment of what you call a constitutional government. The Constitution wasn't written to govern the people. It was written for the people to be able to resist the overreaches of a rogue government, and it's in all of the Federalist Papers of the so-called Founding Fathers, right? Now, here's another one, duration. Occupation can be temporary or prolonged, depending on the circumstances and eventual resolution of the conflict, right? So that means there's no time limit on how long a person can be occupied. Temporary is short term. Example is when they placed Muhammad Karzai as the president of Afghanistan. He was a temporary occupying president. You only need a president in the occupied territory because the president is the one who is responsible to negotiate the peace settlement in the separation of the occupier from the occupied, which is going to come up later. Go to the other side, Elder. Now, this is what the Hague determined. Occupation may be defined as the effective control of a foreign territory by hostile armed forces. Can't nobody in this country tell me the police have not been hostile to us copper color, indigenous, organic, original people of the land. This definition derives from Article 42 of the Hague Regulations of 1907, which states territory is considered occupied when it is actually placed under the authority of a hostile army. We talking about conquistadors, Huguenots, and gentry, right? I think that's it for that slide. Now, A police state is the state used to enforce the occupancy, right? Now, notice it's a totalitarian state controlled by a political police force that secretly subverses the citizens' activity. Secretly. We talking COINTELPRO, we talking Readiness Exercise 1984, and we talking all of the legalese and regulations that's been used to keep us from ever discovering that America is a foreign occupied territory by belligerent and hostile forces. We got to jump to the last slide right here for 1 second, Elder, because the people need to know that the government declared us their enemy. We didn't declare these people our enemy, right? And they doubled down in the Banking Act of 1913, the creature from Jekyll Island, the founding of the Federal Reserve System of banking that was given by the Rothschilds, who was the ones keeping a allodial title. Notice, I did not write this. This is coming straight out of Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition. It says military, pertaining to war and to the army concerned with war. Black's Law 6, see the note. The note says, the amendatory act to the Trading with the Enemies Act of October the 6th, 1917, namely the Emergency Banking Relief Act of March 9th, 1933, defined the American people as the enemy legally of the United States government because of the U.S. bankruptcy through which the private international Federal Reserve System became the government, right? Creditor of the United States. See ramifications of the bankruptcy, the nature of Federal Reserve notes in appendix. Okay, go back to the third slide, Elder. So they telling us that we occupied by belligerent hostile forces, and they've been using subversive means.
They hate. They don't like.
You going in and out, Elder? What'd you say?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I say so. The Federal Reserve, which is owned by private shareholders, so the private shareholders they don't have the American people's best interests at hand. They don't got our best interests.
They only care about the money.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, now in 1492, when Columbus came, he said in his diary how easy we were going to be to conquer. Why is this important? For this next part, a foreign invasion, because the white man's burden of the papacy gave the go-ahead, the green light, to the conquistadors that were in the process of being exiled from Europe to come and establish this land under the papal control of the occupiers that they sent. First to come was conquistadors. The largest land holding in the first 100 years, according to the maps, was Spain. They had named probably 60% of Turtle Island New Spain, right? This is why the dirty Moors keep calling this Morocco.
Go ahead.
Right. Now, a foreign invasion is in a military context, is a military offensive by one geopolitical entity, that means one government, entering and taking control of territory controlled by another, often with the intent of conquest, liberation, or regime change. Invasion can be a cause of war, a part of a larger conflict, or a war in themselves. Beyond military invasion, the term invasion can also be used metaphorically to describe a large-scale foreign population entering a country, as seen in some historical and political debates about immigration. Now, this is why Trump was pushing this immigration stuff, because it's part of the occupancy of a foreign agency. And the ones that's from different parts of Turtle Island, they have to get rid of them because of this one. Aggression. Invasion typically involve acts of aggression and violence against the invaded territory. Where do we prove that at, Elder? From 1492 to 1776. Where can we prove that the invasion was an act of aggression and violence against the invaded territory, which was controlled at that time by the original people of Turtle Island? Do you know?
No, I got a whole bunch of ideas, but not off the top of my head. Go ahead, bro.
Okay, so now go back to the Thanksgiving story.
Okay.
The Thanksgiving story is the first major act of violence of the people that came as colonizers that they called settlers, but they wasn't paleface. You got to remember that part, because the paleface was being brought over as pets by these people. The Mongolian and the Huns was being brought over as pets. They literally call them our pets. Right. I'm not making it up. This is what they call them. Now, the objective of an invasion can vary, but they often include establishing or reestablishing control, liberating territory, or gaining concessions, right? Theirs was the first one, is establishing the control. How do we know that they was establishing control? They wrote about it. They wrote about the Louisiana Purchase when the French lost and had to leave, and they sold the Protectorate Agreement. They wrote about it. They wrote about the surveying of the land, and they told us this fairy tale, fanciful story of the Lewis and Clark expedition, led by Big Ben Bay. Right. Now, scale. Invasions are usually large-scale military operations that require significant planning and execution. That means that when they was trying to conquer us, they had to put together a comprehensive plan of attack in order to impose their governmental systems upon the people of Turtle Island, who had their own systems. How do we prove we had our own systems, Elder? With common historical information.
Go ahead.
The U.S. Constitution is derived from what Constitution? The Iroquois Confederate Constitution, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. And the Iroquois Confederates had their own constitution. They call it the Confederate Army. Remember that?
Right.
Okay, now there's another constitution, right? It's called the Cherokee Constitution, also called Hadosa or Longhouse Constitution.
Right.
Every tribe that did business and work together had their agreements through these constitutions. Mm-hmm. This is where they even get the idea of installing another constitution. Right? Now, they're going to give us some examples. Scroll up a little bit, Elder. Make sure it's the top of the... You scroll it down. Okay. So here we go. Examples. Historical examples include the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Now pay attention to the next one. And the Mexican-American War of 1846 to 1848, where the U.S. invaded and occupied parts of Mexico. The U.S. is still occupying parts of Mexico. Is this provable? Look up the history of Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, California, Nevada, which was all part of the Mexican territory prior to the Mexico-American War that lasted from the 2 years of 1846 to 1848. Right? Now, beyond military invasion is mass immigration. The term invasion has been used in some political discourse to describe large-scale immigration, often with negative connotations. So it take you back to the settlers again. Who in the history books did they say that the settlers was made up of who? Prisoners, religious dissidents, prostitutes, and other undesirable elements of the English, French, Portuguese, Spanish, etc. So they was allegedly immigrating these people onto the land with the pretense that they were going to occupy the land. Remember, they discovered this, and we not supposed to be here, but we was already here when they got here. But they discovered it. I'm gonna go next door and discover my neighbor's house and sleep on his couch and see what he say without his permission. So now let's go to the next slide.
What the hell they going
This is all just food for research. We just going over it to show y'all how to be able to see the occupation and the dismantling of the occupation. Next slide, Elder. Trying to get through these slides so we can go to some questions.
That computer's starting to freeze.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can go ahead. Yeah, because it's my computer, man. I cleaned it off and everything today. Like it's acting crazy. It won't let me share. Hold on. Let's try this. It says your bell has been shared. Hold up. We all like it just cut off and just cut back on for some reason. I don't know what it. Now, here you go. Here you go. All right, here we go, Rod. You already read this right here, right?
Wait a minute. Okay, we right on time. So the military occupation called the white man's burden is the cause and catalyst of the doctrine of discovery, right? And this is what the doctrine of discovery say. The doctrine of discovery is a controversial legal and religious concept that justifies European colonization and land seizure by claiming that discovered territories belong to Christian nations, not the indigenous people already living there. The doctrine rooted in the papal bulls, like Inter Caetera in 1493, argued that lands not inhabited by Christians were open for Christian exploitation and conversion. It was later adopted by the U.S. Supreme Court in cases like Johnson versus McIntosh in 1823, solidifying its impact on American Indian law. Solidifying its impact on American Indian law. In 2023, the Vatican formally repudiated the doctrine. We're going to look that word up, repudiated, in a minute. But here's more detailed breakdown. Key aspects of the doctrine of discovery, root in papal bulls. So they telling you who is sanctioning the invasion of Turtle Island, and it's giving you the background now. The doctrine originated with papal bulls, particularly the Inter Caetera, which granted European nations the right to take control of non-Christian lands and people with the goal of spreading Christianity. That's called the white man's burden. And the white man ain't white. Y'all got to remember that. The justification for colonization. It provided a religious and legal framework for justifying European colonization and land acquisition in the Americas and other parts of the world. I'm going to read that again, Elder, because this is important. Hold on, go back. I'm going to read that again. I want to read that again. The justification for colonization. In other words, this is what makes us have the right to colonize you. It provided a religious and legal framework which tell you that your church and your judiciary, your legal, your judges and lawyers are all under this framework for justifying European colonization and land acquisition in the Americas and other parts of the world. The land acquisition part is critical to the jurisdictional understanding of how to get rid of the colonizer. Let's go to the next side.
All right. Yeah, the word repudiate.
Repudiate.
Repudiate, it means refuse to accept or be associated with. Deny, it says, okay, yeah. So you refuse to accept or be associated with. So I guess associated with the new government.
Okay, now there's a term called, scroll back up. It's just out of sight. Terra nullis. The doctrine often relied on the idea that lands not inhabited by Christians was terra nullis. That means no man's land, meaning they were open for discovery and claim.
Wow.
That means no matter how operational your system is, no matter how functional your governments are, no matter how peaceful the people live, no matter what's going on the land in commerce and in basic day-to-day life, this no man's land mean that is open for discovery and claim, right? Now, influence on international law. You notice they keep bringing up international law. When they talk international law, they're talking the Law of Commerce Uniform Commercial Code. The doctrine influenced international law, particularly in the context of European colonization and the establishment of colonial empires, right? That's planting seeds everywhere you want to conquer. Now watch this. Adoption of the discovery doctrine in U.S. law. The U.S. Supreme Court's decision in Johnson versus McIntosh in 1823 incorporated the doctrine into American law, asserting European discovery as the basis for land ownership in the United States. Wow. That means that everybody who bought land in the United States after this was justified under the crown, but was belligerent to the organic original people in the tribes. Wow. But let's go on. The legal the legacy of the doctrine. The doctrine of discovery has been criticized as a source of injustice and oppression, leading to the displacement and dispossession of indigenous people, right? Now, here go that Vatican repudiation. Remember, this was done because Sipico, the young lady in Canada, openly put the Pope on public notice. We already went over that information in earlier classes, right? But look what it's saying. 2023, the Vatican formally repudiated the doctrine, meaning they disassociated themselves from it. They don't want nothing to do with it. That means that acknowledging its role in the harm caused to indigenous people. So not only did they say we don't want nothing to do with it, they said it has done extensive harm to the indigenous people, the organic original people, the caretakers of the land. The great law, we don't own the land, we caretakers of it, the land own us. This is why we don't believe in selling land in the tribes. Because to sell land is like selling your mama. We'll F you up about our mama and they'll sell you theirs. These are the people we dealing with. Right. Let's go to the next slide, Elder.
Hey, quick question before we go to the next slide. Hey, Rod, so how does this tie in with the 2014 letter that the Pope sent to Obama? Does that tie in with this?
Yep. Well, that go back to, he was telling them that everything that the Vatican was tied to in the discovery of the Americas, that they had to dismantle it. That's what that letter was about, telling them to dismantle that system. Because we no longer will give you spiritual protection by conjure magic, so to speak, from the tribes of the land, because we can't stop it from waking up. Now, watch this. Remember I told y'all that the Hell's Angels came long before Columbus, and they was called Vikings.
Go ahead.
This is it. The Vikings were the first Europeans to explore and settle parts of North America, with evidence suggesting they reached Newfoundland around 1000 AD. Later in 1492, Christopher Columbus, sailing for Spain, initiated European colonization and the age of discovery. Now, this was when Leif Erikson them brought Scotia and Scotia from Ireland to escape the onslaught of the Moorish and rest of Europe. That was the Inquisitor and the Moors. They was fighting that war way back then. They was trying to execute the rightful heirs of Europe, which at the time fell on the island of Scotland based on blood right. And the two sisters, Scotia and Scotia, was ushered over here in this Viking incursion into the Americas to seek refuge for Scotia and Scotia, the twin sisters. One was buttermilk yellow with bright red hair. The other one was caramel red with freckles and auburn red hair. That's why the Norse, the Vikings, was given permission to roam the land as outlaws until such time as Big Mama need them. As long as they stayed to themselves and worship under their own vine and fig tree, we didn't have any restrictions on them as long as they kept the civilians out of their business. The civilians don't get in the Hell's Angels and the rest of the 1% bike groups until they start being infiltrated by the FBI under the COINTELPRO initiated claim to stifle out the tribal leadership. Also, heads of these biker groups have been making alliances with chiefs that's behind the concrete wall trapped in a cell. That when the time comes, we gonna all join together, arm in arm as brothers, to overthrow the resistance or to overthrow the resisting force of colonizers that want to control the land, right? So we already knew that we had been in contact with Vikings or Norsemen. Now, the next incursion, Christopher Columbus, scroll up. It said Christopher Columbus's voyage beginning in 1942 marked a significant turning point, initiating large-scale European exploration and colonization of the Americas. Now remember, they already told us that the invasion and occupation is a large-scale military operation, didn't they?
Right.
All right. Now watch what they say. He is often credited with, look what, discovering the Americas, although the Norse had already explored and settled parts of North America centuries earlier. Right? Let's go to the next part. Now, remember I told you the first to come was the Conquistadors. They were Spanish. Following Columbus, Spain established a vast colonial empire in the Americas, including the Caribbean, Central America, and parts of the United States. Spanish explorer Hernando Cortez and Francisco Coronado played key roles in expanding the Spanish Empire. We not know MF in Spain. Watch this. Other European powers. France, Huguenots, England, gentry, and the Netherlands also became involved in colonizing North America, leading to conflict and rivalries for control of the continent. They was fighting among themselves for control, and they was fighting us for control. Right? Let's go to the next one.
Wow.
The French began colonizing North America in 1534. That's about, from 1492, that's about 40 years after Columbus. When Jacques Cartier explored the St. Lawrence River and claimed the territory for France, establishing what would become known as New France. This colonization continued for over 240 years. Do the math. That's 1774, 1 year right before the Revolutionary War. Okay, now, This colonization continued for 240 years, encompassing various regions like Canada, Acadia, Hudson Bay, Newfoundland, and Louisiana. Notice Louisiana Purchase. Here's a more detailed breakdown. 1534, Jacques Cartier first voyage to explore the coast of Newfoundland and the St. Lawrence River marks the beginning of French colonization in North America. 1608, the establishment of Quebec City by Samuel de Champlain solidifies the French presence in the region. 17th and 18th century, the French Empire in North America expands, encompassing the vast territory from the Atlantic coast to the Rocky Mountains. Let that sink in.
Wow.
1763, the Treaty of Paris cedes most of New France to Great Britain. That's the Louisiana Purchase, people, ending French colonial rule in North America. That's how the French had lost. That's why they had to leave. Now, notice 1763 is 11 years before. Wait a minute. 1763 is 14 years before 1776, or 13 years. Now, watch this. The English did not invade America in the traditional sense. Now, we call it stealth warfare. Instead, they began establishing colonies, starting with Jamestown, Virginia in 1607, and continued to expand their presence throughout the 17th and the 18th centuries. This process involved establishing settlements rather than a military conquest, although it did involve interactions with the indigenous populations. Here's a more detailed look at the process. Early attempts. Before 1607, there were unsuccessful attempts to establish colonies, such as the Roanoke colony in the late 16th century. Do y'all remember what happened to the Roanoke colony? They was wiped out by the original people of the land. They was wiped the F out. They didn't belong here and they didn't have permission to be here. So the tribes did what the tribes do, get rid of the people that you didn't invite that came in and just prop their feet up on your coffee table like they was in their own damn living room, right? The Jamestown colony, 1607. This was the first permanent English settlement in North America, establishing what is now Virginia. Go ask the Virginia Indians about this stuff. They got a different story to tell you than your textbook. Now watch this. Expansion. Over the next few decades, English established more colonies, including in New England, Maryland, and Virginia by 1640. Growth and the 13 colonies. By the 18th century, most of the English colonies had developed into the 13 British colonies that would eventually lead to the American Revolution. Who was the first to die in the American Revolution? Crispus Attucks. First blood, right? This process of colonization was not simply a matter of military conquest. It involved a complex interaction between the English colonizers, the indigenous populations, and other European powers like the French and Spanish. While there were conflicts, the primary focus was on establishing settlements, trading, and exploiting the resources of the land. That's why they came. I didn't write none of this, by the way. I want everybody to know the stuff we read now is a cursory Google search without no deep dive. We just going over to give y'all some guidelines to understand this occupation and the overthrow of the occupation. Besides the French, Spanish, and English, other European powers that colonized parts of the Americas include the Dutch, Portuguese, and Russian empires. It's a caveat to Russia, and I'm going to tell you why after we get to the end of this section, as well as smaller powers like Sweden and Denmark. So we had to fight all these motherfuckers. We had to fight all of them. Elaboration. The Dutch established colonies in what is now New York, the Hudson River Valley, and parts of the Caribbean. Now, this right here is critical because this is the where you get the term New Yorkshire. New Yorkshire is also called the United Nations. This is where Wall Street was set up to do international trade on a large scale in primarily human capital. Now, the Portuguese claimed and colonized Brazil. That's why they speak Portuguese and Spanish in Brazil. The Russians established colonies in Alaska. Russia was coming to give aid to the tribes. They the only European nation or a group of Europeans, I don't even know if they're a nation, but the Russians gave us aid in fighting the Conquistadors. This who came to support the attack on Scottish Castle when the Spanish Armada was bombing it into rubble. This is why they was settled in Alaska, right? But then you have smaller powers. Sweden had a brief presence in the Delaware River Valley, right? And Denmark also had some colonial holdings. That means they had some financial investments in the colonies, Denmark. So you got Sweden and Denmark, and this is why Delaware, being the first official state, also have a large Swedish feel to the naming of their districts, counties, and regions. Right? Now, let's go to the next one. Okay, now, we getting to the good part now. When everybody keep asking me and I keep trying to explain what Donald Trump and Doge is doing, it's going to come up as we go over this part. It's going to pop out at you. Watch this. Ending the foreign occupation generally involves the occupied state regaining effective control, which can happen through the withdrawal of foreign forces, a peace agreement, or a transfer of authority to a local government endorsed by the population. Other factors include the loss of effective control by the occupying power, the consent of the sovereign, which means the people that's from the land they occupying, and international recognition of a new government. Right? Here's a more detailed look. Loss of effective control. This is what makes this is how we overthrowing the occupation. Everything we about to go over now is breaking down what they doing. The occupying power can lose control through military defeat or a shift in the balance of power, making it unable to maintain its presence, which takes you back to the executive orders of 2017 and 2018. This can involve military withdrawal or a resumption of fighting, meaning that the war start back up. But we didn't want to start the war because we didn't want to give them another extension. Right? Now, part 2. Peace agreements. A peace agreement between the occupying power and the ousted government, or this is our tribal government we talk about, or an indigenous government can formally end the occupation and transfer authority. This often involved negotiations and the establishment of a new political order. Right? Now, transfer of authority. The occupying power can transfer authority to an indigenous government that has gained the consent of the occupied population through a referendum or other means. This government must also receive international recognition to be considered legitimate. Hold on, Elder, before you go up. All right, this is important. Scroll back up to 3. All right, now, this right here is codified in the FEMA document called Continuity of Government that we've already discussed in these classes on the Young Elder channel. The occupying power and the transfer of authority back to the indigenous is being transferred to the chiefs that have been selected across the land that when the Pope was put on notice, Scipico literally said, the chiefs across the land have been selected. Govern yourselves accordingly, right? Okay, that's important because the transfer of authority is the continuity of government so that the people can minimize their suffering by being aware of what's taking place on the land among the tribes and the occupying force. Let's go to number 4. International Law and Security Council. So this deals with the Indigenous Rights Act of the United Nations. It's not law, it's just a recognition of our right to use our oral tradition to reclaim what's rightfully ours by putting all this information in the public domain. Notice the agent is notice the principal. Now watch what it say. The UN Security Council has a special role in addressing occupation and can override other norms, right? And part 2 say international human rights law and humanitarian law also play a role in protecting the rights and well-being of the occupied population, us.
Yeah.
So this is why your indigenous rights, your UNDRIP, is so valuable for study groups among the tribes, because you have to use your system to overthrow their system by following the oral tradition of the tribes of the land, accepting no law but the great law, no condition but the restoration of the matriarchy. Period. Let's go to the next one.
Point blank.
Part 5, the importance of consent. The consent of the occupied population is crucial in establishing a legitimate government and ending the occupation. This is why they put us on the voting block, to keep us divided so that we can't never consent to oust the invaders. This is why all tribal leadership need to be studying this information so that they understand that we got to be on the same page. It's over 5,000 tribes across Turtle Island in just the North American section alone. We haven't even got to Haiti, Jamaica, Dominica, St. Lucia, St. Croix, Grenada. We haven't even got to them yet. Just on the mainland, it's over 5,000 original tribes that's always been here before colonization of 1492. Now, referendums and other mechanisms can be used to ensure that the government reflects the will of the people, right? We the people. All tribes' names in their individual tribal tongue translates as we the people or we the folks.
We the folks.
And they call us gangs for using our own terminologies. Okay, now, the most recent, pay attention, significant change involving large-scale firings within the U.S. federal government. These cuts, spurred by executive orders and budget constraints, have resulted in tens of thousands of layoffs across various federal agencies. Here's a more detailed look. Government layoffs. The Trump administration and Elon Musk have implemented a series of layoffs and firings in the federal government. This is part of the transfer of the power back to the tribes, we the people. Impacted agencies. These cuts have affected agencies like the Department of Energy, the Department of Education, and the Department of Homeland Security, among others. Number of layoffs. Hundreds of thousands of federal employees have been laid off or fired, including those in probationary status. Reason for layoffs. The reason for the layoff include budget cuts, a desire to reduce the size of the federal workforce, and concerns about efficiency. Now, when I pulled this up, it came up under the dismantling of the occupation. Let's go to the next one, Elder. Turtle Island. Okay, now, potential for reinstatement. Some federal employees, especially those in probationary status, have been temporarily reinstated due to legal challenges or court orders. All this is tied to the dismantling of the corporation. Administrative law judges, which makes up a sizable portion of the judiciary, are de facto courts operating in admiral and maritime, and we follow the great law, the law of the land, aka the people's law. We don't follow that bullshit they follow. All right, let's go to the next one now. Okay, now this is important because we're going back to the tribal authority and the reevaluation of everything, and all tribes have to figure out how they want to structure their tribal structures, how they want to do their ceremonies have to be rewritten because many of our ceremonial rights have been lost to colonization and assassination and homicide. Tribal authority is asserted through a combination of inherent sovereignty, recognition by the federal government, and the exercise of self-government powers, which is called autonomy. Tribes have the right to govern themselves. A right is only useful if you exercise it. Tribes have a right to govern themselves, make and enforce laws, and manage their lands and resources. This is often reinforced through intergovernmental agreements and by asserting jurisdiction over tribal members and non-members within their reservation or their territory. Here's a more detailed look. Inherent sovereignty. When they say inherent, that means that it's already in you. You already sovereign. But now you got to learn how it applies on the world stage so that we can get our act together as collective tribes and start to reconstitute our tribal structures and send our delegates and leadership to meet with the tribal mother committee. All tribes got to have a tribal mother or they won't be recognized because it's a matriarchal return. So if you don't have a tribal mother, write the ceremony, record the ceremony, put it in the public domain so the people of the other tribes know who your tribal mother is. Everybody know my tribal mother right now was Empress Rarebird. Everybody know that they've been watching me. It's no secret. I ain't hiding her. I ain't trying to push her off her seat. I'm trying to protect her seat. Right now, these powers include the right to form their own governments, make and enforce laws, tax, determine membership, and regulate activities within their jurisdiction. This is why the lines of demarcation has to change. Limitation on these powers exists due to treaties, congressional actions, and court rulings. That means that they've used treaties, congressional acts, and court rulings to override our tribal right. So now we have to organize each tribe. The more tribes get organized, we need to start communicating across tribal boundaries in order to get to the consensus of the tribes all being in agreement about being on the same page of restoring the matriarchy and the great law to get rid of the admiralty occupational maritime jurisdiction. 2, federal recognition and consultation. The federal government recognizes the right of tribes to self-determination and self-governance through legislation like the Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act of 1975 and the Tribal Self-Governance Act of 1984. Make it a note to get those out. That we got to go do a class on those. We got to pull them out and review them. Okay. So we got to get those because we haven't done a class on either one of those, right? But now, next is the federal law requires consultation with tribes on federal actions, policies, and regulations that directly affect them. They don't be consulting with us, so they in breach of their own writings. But that's not here or there. This includes consultations on projects that may impact tribal land, cultural resources, or other interests. right? Then you get to the part where we have to assert our tribal jurisdiction, asserting jurisdiction. Tribes can assert jurisdiction over tribal members and non-members within their reservation. When they say reservation, they ain't just talking about the tribe's own reservations. They talking about the tribes that they couldn't put on the reservations because they wouldn't leave their land. They talking about them too. They can also assert jurisdiction over non-members where their conduct on reservation land threatens the tribe. That means if you come on tribal territory, that means that if you take your civilian ass to over there where the rolling 60s at, and you own some BS and they roll out on you, that's your fault. You're going to get dealt with by the tribe, right? They can also assert that's all. Tribal courts can issue civil protection orders and enforce other tribal laws, right? A civil protection order is the same as a PPO. If we find competent tribal courts, we can then put a restraining order against a corporation because we have what's called territorial jurisdiction. But that's for the tribes to come together and try to put this stuff together in a functional manner all across the land. Intergovernmental agreements. That means agreements between two tribes or between the corporation and one of the tribes. Tribes can negotiate intergovernmental agreements with federal, state, and local governments to recognize and affect their sovereign authority. Right? You don't need nobody to recognize your sovereign authority. You just need the blood and the right. They already know what your authority and jurisdiction is. These agreements can cover various areas such as gaming compacts, which is casinos, taxation, tribal taxes instead of IRS taxes, extradition, meaning no, you can't take our tribesmen from our jurisdiction and import them into your jurisdiction. We have a non-extradition of tribal members to the corporate status. Remember I told you Noble Drew Ali, when he originally set up, used to be able to go send a grand sheik to get you out of their system. Right. This is what this is talking about. But they disregarding us now because not enough tribal leadership understand this. And cross deputization. That means that they can deputize members of another tribe to be law enforcement on their territory. 5, affirmative and defensive sovereignty. Affirmative sovereignty involves the positive assertion of tribal authority through the enactment of tribal law and ordinance. This is important because tribal traditions say that the tribe's chief who discovers something has to put it in the public domain for scrutiny by all tribe members equally. There's no big eyes, there's no little U's. We tell you the discovery, we show you where we found it at, and we give you our understanding of what it means. It's up to the tribesman at that point to review the information, discuss it with its family in order for them to know what to do next. Defensive sovereignty involves a use of sovereign immunity to protect tribes and their officials from lawsuit. That's like having they recognize as diplomats on the land in opposition to the corporate government. Now, this is what we've been working on in the background while I was on hiatus, and y'all haven't been hearing much from Empress Redbird. We're working on connecting to tribal courts. They already had tribal courts, but now we have to find a communication between all tribal courts so that we can use this part we about to go over now. Tribal courts have jurisdiction over civil and criminal matters involving tribal members and may also have jurisdiction over non-members under certain circumstances. Tribal courts can issue various orders, including civil protection orders and restraining orders, right?
Yeah, this was in the Cha-Cha Treaty. The Cha-Cha Treaty. They talked about that in the Cha-Cha. Yeah.
7, tribal enrollment. every tribe have to determine the standard by which they will allow a person to be in their tribe. This is called tribal enrollment. Tribes set their own enrollment criteria, which may include lineal descent, blood quantum, and other requirements. This ensures that tribal membership is determined by the tribe itself. Can't no government tell you what tribe you part of. Only you and the rest of the tribe can say if you part of that tribe or not. The
That's
standard is determined by the tribe that's assessing you for membership, right? Part 8, tribal consultation. Federal law requires consultation with tribes on federal actions, policies, and regulations that may affect them. This consultation process helps ensure that tribal governments have a voice in decisions that affect their members and lands. Now, remember, they never honored any of this in relation to the tribes before. This is what made their occupation hostile and belligerent, and this is how they can declare that the people of the land is the enemy. Now, by utilizing these various mechanisms, tribes can effectively assert their authority and exercise their right to self-governance. That sink in. So this is what the United Nations Declaration of Indigenous Rights cover look like. We want to show you so you can go get it. Every tribal leader across the land should be reading this till they almost know it by heart in order to know what rights they are enforcing when they make their public declaration for their tribe. Chief Warhorse already declared the victory for her tribe in the fraud that was usurping them. And I posted that about 2 or 3 months ago. So once she did it, we have the right to follow suit of a competent heirs chief in declaring the victory over the corporate fraud that was masquerading as our government in hostile occupation. And the other one is, let's go to the next one. This is what the American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People look like. These are PDFs that's free to anybody that want them online. You need this. We didn't do a cover for the continuity of government, but right on the cover, it tells you that the tribes are involved. The tribes do have a say in taking our power back because we ain't asking nobody for nothing.
Right.
We just trying to get the information to the rest of the tribes that we already did what was required. Following our tribal tradition, exercising our tribal right of self-determination and autonomy, exercising our oral tradition to put it in the public domain, understanding that notice to agent is notice to principal. We've already declared all of their treaties as fraud and failure to perform or non-performance as the cause to cancel all of their treaties. It's in the public domain, been there since 2019. So we just went over a sizable piece of information. We can go to Q&A now. This was the last thing. Yeah.
I got a couple questions.
Let's go.
Say something about that?
No, I'm waiting on the question.
That one we just showed. Let me pull it back up, Rod.
Go ahead. I'm waiting on the question.
All right. Quick Q&A. The Q&A.
Yeah.
Stop sharing the screen. All right, this is the question I got, Rod. Now, it seemed like to me, all these guys had their own spot. Now, we know some of the guys was nomads, and they came from off world, and they never had a home. But why would all these guys want to come over here and attack us and take our shit? Like, we must have had some over here that was more valuable than other stuff around the world. Why would the French, the Spanish, all these guys want to come over here and mess with us? And they had their own stuff over there. Go ahead. That's the first.
Okay, now you got to remember what they said they was looking for. Cortez was looking for gold.
Right.
Right. The English was looking for land and resources because they don't produce that. The French was looking for furs, and they was looking for what they call it's a term they use, but they was looking for stuff that they can't produce over there. Spices, tobacco. So they all came for something different. But they all came to take it from us without our permission and don't want us to say nothing. They want us to just grin and bear it. We're not doing that. And when we follow our tribal standard, the tribes can reconstitute at any given time. Many of them is reconstitute, but labeled as criminal organizations by the government because they hostile and belligerent, because they outlaw tribes. They refuse to do treaties. Right? But they thought that it, go back to Columbus's diary again. What did he say? These people, they give you anything they got, so nobody wants anything. They kind-hearted and jovial people. They will be easy to conquer.
Hey, my next question is: I used to see these, the KKK guys or whatever they call themselves, riding around with this red flag with the X on it, and then I found out that hey, that flag was originally a Iroquois Confederation flag. So you got anything on that? Because these guys, we was always taught to.
Okay,
that's
look,
KKK flag.
all them pale faces that you see with the rebel flag, they were fighting on the behalf of the Iroquois Confederacy.
That makes sense, bro. That makes sense.
Right. They wasn't fighting for the Patriots in the North.
Right.
Remember, they always told us the South will rise again.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The South is the top. North is the bottom, and they got us disoriented by telling us North is up and South is down. West is east and east is west. That's how they disorient you under the spell. As long as you don't know the proper context and orientation of your position on the planet, you're going to see everything upside down and backwards, because that's what they did. They gave us everything back upside down and backwards, but we had to decipher what they're saying. And most of us don't understand what they did. So it's difficult for them to break free. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. But somebody mentioned in the comments about the UN documents not being they're not to be enforceable. Mm-hmm. It's up to us to enforce our tribal right. We use that as a guideline to understand that if we use our tribal traditions, it automatically overthrows the occupier. It not haphazardly, it's the direct affront. They just codified it so you know, once you understand what your rights is, the assertion of your rights, the overt act of exercising your right according to the tribal tradition is what overthrows the occupiers. Remember, we always had to educate ourselves above the conditions, so we no longer have to understand, we now have to understand what's taking place.
Mm-hmm. Somebody said, how can they repudiate?
Right. So all that is the Pope saying, look, that doctrine of discovery stuff, it was all made up. We ain't really had no right to do that. Now I don't want nothing to do with it. Right. Mm-hmm. The letter that you mentioned to Obama from the Pope was them telling them, getting people their stuff back. Was it 2014?
Yep, 2014.
Yeah. So once the Pope told the President Obama to give these people their stuff back, he tried to go into business with Morocco, because we had a lot of us believing that Morocco has some kind of magical jurisdiction over Turtle Island, and they don't. Morocco ain't even ancient. That motherfucker about 75, 80 years old. They built
yeah.
Morocco
Right.
based on the writings of Noble Drew Ali. Morocco is not an ancient country. It's new. Noble Drew Ali had the flag before the country of Morocco had the flag. A little research to show this.
Yeah. And it wasn't
That
no
means that,
screen card.
yeah.
It was just written.
Now,
It was all
a
written.
lot of people don't know, but I did a whole code flip with the Sultan of the current Morocco, and he surrendered. He said, "You right."
Go
Right.
ahead.
It was coded messages back and forth between me and him on social media.
Yeah, man.
We
So let me
followed the oral tradition to the letter, the tribal way to the letter. Anytime we do that, anybody that understands tribal right understand that if we followed it, there's nothing they can do. But forever, you are 100% right to repudiate the doctrine and not openly say, not only do I repudiate it, we give it all back. But they gave it all back before they repudiated the doctrine. That's what the Indigenous Rights Act of both the UN and America is telling you. Everything they gave you the right to secure. You just got to follow the tribal tradition, the oral tradition. It's actually in the document to follow the oral tradition in order to assert your sovereign jurisdiction as an organic original from the land. Let's go, Elder.
Hey, so let me ask you this, Rod. Now that we up to this point, we getting all of our stuff back. Now we can't. Do we supposed to expect for them to not nationalize us, but do we expect for them to say, "Oh yeah, well you from this tribe and you from that tribe"? How do we go about? Because a lot of people asking this. How do they go about finding what their original tribe that they was from on the land? I got tapes out on it, like the tracing your ancestor history. But could you go in more on like how
The
do we
simplest
relocate
thing.
the chiefs, even the chiefs of our tribe? They didn't displace everything.
So what we need to do is trace back to where our great grandparents, the most of our relatives come from, and look on the tribal. If your people came from Oklahoma and y'all end up moving to Michigan or New York, and then you go do your research and you say, my great great grandfather was in Oklahoma, right? So then you go back and find out, okay, what part of Oklahoma was he in? Then a simple Google search, what tribe occupied this part of Oklahoma? Because remember, we was paper genocided. They wrote us off on paper, but we still have a means to discover who we are by understanding how to map us on the land from when they paperwork was enacted and followed us, right? So they came up with this paperwork in order for all of the tribes to have slave papers to traverse the land, impeding your freedom of locomotion according to legalese is what it's called, right? Freedom of locomotion is an inalienable right. Your ability to traverse the land is an inalienable right, but they converted it to a privilege. But then they turned around and said that nobody can convert a right to a privilege. But anything you need a license for mean that they gave you permission to do something that's otherwise illegal, right? That means that's not a right, that's a privilege. Privileges need to be given permission. Rights, you don't need permission. You just need a comprehensive manner to secure or exercise your right. This is what we're going over. We've been following the steps.
Yeah, I noticed, Rod, the problem that we having is not like a lot of us individually, we know this stuff, some of it, but the problem we having is not enough of us is sticking together on it. Like we might see somebody stand up for his sovereign rights, and then when the police might beat him down, even though they doing wrong and they ain't following the right, what they supposed to be following, the treaties and everything. They beat this guy down, so that scare everybody else away, saying, man, that dude went out there talking about that more science got his behind beat down still. So, you know, what's the use? It's like this. So
Dred Scott is the reason. The Dred Scott is the foundation of what you're describing.
Yeah, Black Christian codes, all it.
Yeah, you have no rights that these colonizers is bound to respect. It's in the Dred Scott
why
case.
should we honor his paperwork if you don't honor ours? Look, all the treaties he made for us,
listen.
Listen,
the reason we gotta follow their rules is because we follow their rules.
Go ahead.
Consent is a critical aspect of being occupied. The occupied people have to consent to the occupation, or it's a hostile occupation. The trick is to convince you to vote. Your vote means you agree with the occupation. You agree to be governed by the occupier. But if you ain't never voted, you never consented to none of that.
Yeah, I ain't never voted in my life, ever.
We don't know what all this stuff is because, the Uniform Commercial Code requires everything be done in a uniform manner. Mm-hmm. This is why all of their agents, whether it's your gas man, your light man, your mailman, your policeman, your fireman, your ambulance driver, they all have to have a uniform. Why? It's the appearance of legitimacy that overrides the actual legitimacy in the psyche of the people. Not until you understand that the legitimate people don't always look like the legitimate people. The legitimate birthright don't fall to the president. It falls to one of these members of one of these tribes. So them busting us in the head, it's them war crimes. That we won't assume civilly, but those are war crimes against humanity. America already been convicted in The Hague for crimes against humanity for what they've been doing to us. They already lost the case. Look it up.
Yeah.
They already lost the case. In an international court, they was being sued for crimes against humanity, genocide, and several other hostile, belligerent claims that they was doing to the people, and they found that they was guilty as charged. America has been found guilty, and the people left wanting for justice. This ain't no secret. This is why we do these classes, because a lot of people is unaware of this information. All we trying to do is bring awareness so we can open up their minds to the liberation at hand, and that everybody must seize their own personal liberation. You don't need no full tribe. If you got a full family and y'all go to Big Mama house for holidays, that's your tribal meeting. That's the powwow. That's where one of y'all stand up and say, look, we got to get on the same page with this.
It says, X Rod, why does he think OT was so easy for the Sahel?
I don't know what he's talking about. I can't make head or hair what this is.
Yeah. Hey, what I was gonna ask you, Rod? Yeah, so man, I forgot what I was gonna ask. I'm gonna take the next question. Let's see. It was some about okay. Hey, y'all drop your questions in the chat if you got any questions for Rob. We're taking questions right now. It says we about to spin the block. We're about to spin the block. So right, we already spent the block on them.
Hey, I want to give out a shout out to Will Kapoor. A lot of y'all don't know who he is, but he was the one who gave me the final master knock and the final master key to crack this code. Wow. Right? Shout out to Lazarus Lamel. Shout out to Crumb Snatcher with his old Masonic ass. They the ones that opened the door.
Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you, Rod. Now I remember Empress Radisi saying that she was getting ready to go file charges against the United States courts. And then right after that, because the COINTELPRO had to be watching her, because a couple of days later, they raided her house and took all of her stuff, her money, everything that she had to be able to make the trip, and then didn't even arrest her or nothing. And then she called back to try to see, hey, how do I get my stuff? Y'all ain't filed no charges or nothing on me. Oh, we don't know nothing about it. They said they don't know nothing about raiding her. What kind of crap is this?
Listen,
you know?
Listen. It's war. You can't expect the people you are at war with to do right by you. And if you find yourself in the position where you can compel them to do right, they coming for you. They coming for you.
Oh, man, that's cold, man.
I knew when I was working for General Motors and they sent this undercover CIA agent to pretend he was trying to get information about contract negotiations. And I called him, you an agent. And it threw him off. But ever since then, they know who we are. Ain't no mistake about it. They know who we are.
They damn sure do. That's for sure.
Right. So look, the only problem with Empress Verdiasi situation, she had too many infiltrators too close to her. Mm-hmm. The infiltrators is the ones who told them where to look for stuff, where she was keeping stuff. They wasn't never supposed to know that.
Right.
She had infiltrators. The same reason Malachi locked up, he had infiltrators.
Right.
And some of them went in his own bloodline.
Right. Dang, boy.
A lot of people gonna leave the land, but a lot of them not. Everybody not dirty players. Mm-hmm. But all the dirty players, we know who they is. They got to go, or they gonna suffer the wrath of Bloods, Crips, Vice Lords, GDs, and P-Stones.
Can you sue the company who insure the government since it's a corporation?
The crazy part about that is not without their consent. That's how you know something wrong.
Dang.
You can't sue them without their consent. They have to, it's in their law. I didn't write it. They wrote it that you can't sue me unless I agree to it.
Man. Hey, but they can sue you. You don't gotta agree to it. Hey, man.
They ain't gonna sue you. They'll lock your ass up.
Yeah, put a gun to your head. You gonna get down and come to this lawsuit. We're gonna blow your brains out. These guys, man, that's war. That ain't that. I don't know how to explain it other than that's war.
Yeah. So we're trying to go from occupation to liberation. We're going from outlaws to the law. It's only two things that we only got to follow the great law. That's the first instruction. And follow the matriarchy is the second. And if we do those two things, we already in our proper person. How do people from the UK trace their tribe? Especially those who have always felt drawn and connected to the Americas. You have to follow your bloodline back far as you can first. That's the first thing. Follow your bloodline. Like I can follow my great-great-great-grandfather back to Mississippi on my mama and my daddy's side. And I can trace my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother back from both sides to Mississippi. Ain't no mistake about it. So when I tell you a Mississippi clay dirt walking, that's because we can prove where we came from and how long look, they built cities on my grandfather's land. Cities.
Right.
Sunflower, Mississippi, Tylertown, Mississippi, Macomb, Mississippi. That all used to be my grandfather's heritable land.
Dang.
Right? But now, they tricked his wife into signing over stuff, and all of those little towns throughout that little region, that was all his private property under tribal rule. But once the colonizers came in, we had no rights they was bound to respect.
Right. That's what they
now
said.
We asserting tribal rights and tribal jurisdiction, following the territorial jurisdiction as caretakers of the land to oust the occupying force. And Donald Trump is dismantling it.
Yeah. Now the
Next
foreign
question, Elder.
occupation. I noticed the foreign occupation. Now, most of these people that's working for this foreign occupation are us, our own people. So how does that work? Our own people working for like most of the police, like in the town, they Nubians, or they us, our tribal people, but they don't, it's like they some I'm just doing my job, I'm just following policy, So what's up with that? How do we get the people that's our people who working for the occupation and the foreign military who got us under in the wartime? How do we get them to wake up, or do we just write them off with the rest of the guys? How do that work?
Some of them just gonna have to get the guillotine. They gonna have to come back in their next life when they realize that we won. But then you have some that's just flatly don't know no better. Mm-hmm. Then them the only ones that you give a semblance of a benefit to. They got they got to have an opportunity to discover the fraud.
Right.
If you discover the fraud and you continuously participate in the fraud, that make you a party to the fraud. So you just as guilty as the original fraud constructors.
Right. Right. So pretty much, like, let's say right now, like a lot of us know, we don't accept these derogatory terms they gave us, like African American, Negroes, blacks, coloreds. Let's say that we don't accept it. So what do we call ourselves? Do we call ourselves, say like I'm Chata and Washita. So what do we call ourselves once we get rid of the labels that they put on us to write us out of history, pretty much?
What's your last name?
My last name Hill, but for the most part, my tribe is.
Well, hold on. Don't worry about that. When you said Hill, that's how you identify from the Hill tribe. I'm from the Hill tribe of original people of this land. Mm-hmm. You don't got to accept none of their misnomers. Right? If you know that you Washita, Iroquois, Cherokee, Chickasaw, whether you're Ojibwe, Oneida, it don't matter. If you know the tribe you from, you use the tribe, but if you don't, your last name, tell them what tribe you from, because they already know what last name was given to what tribe.
They know, Rod. I'm telling you, man. I seen the books. They got them in Kansas. And look, that's what the Empress retreat. They said they had went to Kansas to get them records, and they sued St. Louis and got the records back down to New Orleans. But when they got them in New Orleans, they sealed the records for 25 years so that she couldn't get in the records. See, like, it's a lot of stuff that Empress Radici was doing, like suing the government for records to figure out who's who. We got them records back, but like I say, in New Orleans, the government did something else to cover up the records. They sealed them. Now let's get into that, Ron. Let me ask you that. So them sealing records, these records that they got sealed, how will we go by getting them to unseal them? Like they sealed Malachi case, they sealed all these different cases. Larry Hoover case can't be opened up until this time. Then you find out, you open it up, find out the FBI COINTELPRO was pretty much set this guy up. After 25 years later, we got to find this out though.
Look, we can't worry about them unsealing documents because they got time limits on any of the seals, right? But it's like Manuel Noriega. Most of us don't know that he got the only trial classified top secret in the history of the United States.
Right.
His whole trial classified as top secret. Do you know why?
Right.
Who his co-defendants were that never got charged. George Herbert Walker Bush, Ronald Wilson Reagan. Reagan was being drugged by the CIA to make it look like he had dementia and Alzheimer's. And they told Nancy that if she didn't continue to give him his medication on a day-to-day basis, then not only would he end up crossing over to the other side, but she gonna follow his ass in short order. Damn. And your baby and your children might follow him too. Because Bush had a problem with Reagan, because Reagan was finna unseal a lot of sealed documents. If you go back to his campaign speeches, you'll hear him talking about it. And the one that he didn't want him to unseal was the JFK assassination. right? They didn't want him to unseal the Robert Kennedy assassination, the Martin Luther King. All of those had 50-year moratoriums on them until the King family sued the government for wrongful death, and they had enough evidence to prove their case that it wasn't who's that dude they say killed Martin?
I mean, I know
Was
you're
it
talking about.
John Hinckley? John Hinckley Jr. was it?
I think of his name in a minute. He shot up from the tower. Dang, what was his name? He was an FBI, wasn't it? Ex-military guy.
No, that's the guy that killed that shot Kennedy was a CIA operative.
Yeah,
He was
Greer in the car. He shot him in the car. William
yeah,
Greer.
but the one that they accused from shooting from the book repository, he was a known asset of the CIA. They was originally going to use him to infiltrate Russia in the KGB, but when they sent him to Russia, his Russian wasn't good enough for them not to know he was an American, so they sent him back home.
Hey,
right?
the mob. How does the mob, man? What's the connection with the mob and us in this tribal land? Because I'm noticing they setting up casinos on reservations. They working for the CIA, doing little side jobs and hits and things. What is the connection with these? I know they connected with these dirty Moors too from Corsica, because they was getting
not all of them. Some of them was fighting the dirty Moors in Sicily too.
Go ahead.
You go back to The Godfather. Remember they tried to blow up Michael Corleone and they killed his wife Apollonia.
Yeah,
that was the Cosa Nostra. That was the Sicilians fighting the Black Hand.
Yeah, so the Black Hand been running. They could puppet some of these the mob and this reservation thing. And so I guess what I'm trying to say,
the mafia came over here because they was supposed to have the right, if they keep civilians out of their business, to operate like a tribe, right? So when they, like, if you watch The Godfather, the first one, when Vito Corleone was brought from Sicily to America, right? And he began to move up in the community in good standing with everybody, and he dealt with everybody with just negotiations and fair decisions, right? That's the way chiefs is made. Everything you do, you have to be on the level. If you fuck somebody up and they want to call for a truce, you have to be wise enough to know if they faking the funk or if they serious.
Why do they think it's cracking guns in your neighborhood, God Almighty? I don't understand that question.
I don't really understand it either.
Yeah, that's another thing. This person right here asked this question about the census. Now, man, I'm gonna tell you what. I'm gonna ask this question, bro. All right, so I moved to this neighborhood one time, right? And I had just moved over there, but I was heavy on the Moore science, right? And I had the Moore science flag. And I had a flagpole in my yard, so I put the Moore Science flagpole up. Man, look, as soon as I put that flag up, the Census Bureau kept coming by my house, wanting to see, what's going on. They kept on coming. So what was that? What was the deal on that with the Census Bureau when you because I had that Moore Science flag out there?
Was your yard fenced in?
Huh? No, my yard wasn't fenced in.
That's the problem, because you were supposed to be setting up an embassy. Anytime you find a flag, you're supposed to be setting up an embassy under that flag. You see everybody flying the United States flag?
Yeah.
That means that if you don't follow the Constitution, you have no right to prosecute them for nothing.
Oh, okay. This flag thing is heavy duty then.
All you got to do is go look at an embassy. If you look at an embassy, they're going to be, normally they fenced in. They're supposed to be fenced in.
Yeah.
It's called an enclave. If you go to D.C., you realize that D.C. used to be the District of Columbia, not a District of America. Why? Because we the people took it back. But the 10 square miles was a city-state embassy.
Mhm.
That's why they don't have anybody catch a case in DC. They don't go to state prison. They go to federal prison,
Mhm.
right? And a lot of people don't know why. It's because it's an embassy, and all prisons is controlled by that embassy. All federal prisons is controlled by that embassy. State prisons is controlled by the capital of that state, which is a satellite to DC. You got to know what a satellite corporation is. It ain't the root corporation. It's just a branch on the tree.
Mhm.
This is why I told you all of the capitals got to be moved. All the lines of demarcation got to be moved because this is the military regimented means by which they govern over us.
Mhm.
Right. The census, the question said why a census not made available more often is they don't really want you to be able to assess where your people at. Think about that for a minute and say why. Why they don't want you to know where your people at every 20 years or 10 years whenever they do it.
Mhm.
Why they got to wait 30, 40 years to tell you what is just accounting the people,
Mhm.
right? They don't want you to know where your assets at, where your soldiers at. And once they start giving you information, they can't stop because one thing gonna lead to questions.
Mhm. Mhm.
So they keep everything in the secret to control us in the public. We do everything in the public to expose their secrets.
Mhm.
The tribes never was secret squirrel. These secret societies that came, they really ain't a secret. It's that they hold secrets.
Mhm.
The society itself, everybody know what a Mason is. Everybody know what a Shriner is. We see them at
Right.
Shriners Hospital.
Right.
You know, we know it's a Knights of Malta, but we don't know what they do. They ritual secret and they plans is secret, but the organization is not secret. They call them a secret society because they keep the information of who the rightful heirs to this land. That's a
Right.
secret. We can't tell them.
Yeah, that's the big secret right there. That's the big one. Somebody asked, is the capital going to be located back in Philadelphia? And
It's
they
moving across. Once the tribes get back to jurisdictional supremacy, we moving it to the west side of the Mississippi, and it's supposed to be in New Orleans. Originally, our first capital was in New Orleans.
yeah.
Our intake of not colonizers, refugees, always had to go to the Big Easy first, so that Big Mama know where to send them on the land.
Mhm.
They would monitor them among the mothers across the town, how they behaved and interacted, and based on their temperament, they knew where to send them, where they fit in. Ellis Island was opened up to overrun us with foreigners who was in desperate need of a drop of original blood.
Mhm.
We're going to revisit that too, Elder.
All right. Yeah, I got a couple in my head off of this class right now. Yeah, so in totality, do we got a long time to drag this out? Like, how long you think? I think Donald Trump's 4-year terms pretty much ends it. Ends
Yeah,
the
but
whole
we,
masquerade.
we should, before his term is up, we should be in power
Yeah.
because he's doing all the legwork.
Now this is the thing that they didn't pacify us. This is my next question. Now they didn't pacify us for so long, and the switch, when the switch happened, what about the people who are dependent on this government system for survival? They get checks from the government, they get food stamp from the government. What are they gonna do? How did that switch happen from us when we take power? Are we still gonna pay them food stamps? And some of the suckers are foreign.
Nobody's not over here. Ain't nobody gonna need food stamps.
Go ahead.
We gonna be forming farming co-ops, but you ain't gonna have grocery stores no more. And the farmers is going to be putting together care packages. So I'm just using the word care package because I don't know what the name they're going to give it. But they're going to be putting together care packages by family. Right? So, like, for instance, a beef farmer might be an elk farmer. Right? Or a bison farmer. But when he get his family, extended family, got family members in different cities, right? Well, they got to send teenage boys and girls to the family farm. They own this shit to help harvest. And when they send them back home, they all come home with the care package for their family. So you got a member in your tribal family. It's a family of 4, and they need food for the winter season, right? We really need to cover the winter season with canned goods and frozen goods. So that'll be what the focus will be on, because during the warmer months, a lot of people going to be fishing and stuff like that, where they don't need as much food. But you'll be able to pick up the phone, call your big mama and say, Big Mama, we need about 3 months supply of beans.
Right.
They're going to send you 5 different kind of beans.
Yeah.
In big 50-gallon drums or 20-gallon buckets or whatever the case may be. But all these big grocery stores and these anything that was used in human trafficking and child trafficking are going to be shut down. Anything that was used to poison the people and make people sick, it's going to be shut down. That's what RFK is responsible to do. Shut it all down. Everything hostile to us is going to be shut down until there ain't none of it here no more. From the chemtrail flying planes to the GMOs in the food to big pharma giving you petrol-based drugs to it's all going to be gone, but we're going to have better stuff. Apple's going to taste better. They might be bigger and juicier.
Yeah.
Right? Orange is going to taste better, because a lot of the chemicals for preservatives that's being put on them is what's deteriorating the taste. And now we eating synthetic shit and we don't even know it tastes synthetic because we used to it now.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to ask you, Rod. I was going to ask you because I noticed it's got to be some type of warfare if all the food over here is banned in other countries. Like you can't even, they won't even export the food to other countries. So it's got to be a warfare against us if our food is so bad that nobody else will take it.
And here's the kicker. They will make food for other countries minus the poison.
Damn, boy. That's
all you got to do, if they got people got TikToks where they showing you the comparison, like the ingredients. So go to TikTok, type in ingredients between overseas and America, and they'll show you that our ingredient list might be a whole chapter. Theirs is barely a sentence and a half.
That's right. Because the Mexican pops, when I brought one of the Mexican pops, it don't got the futon, all of the long list of additives. It just got like a little small couple things. No additive flavors, none of it.
Yeah. And RFK working on what's called truth in reporting in the food industry. Because right now, they could take a cow raised in a milk factory being shot up with massive amounts of steroids and vitamins to produce more milk, sell them to a grass-fed or organic farmer. He gets, as long as it's been there, I think 90 days, it's considered grass-fed now. That ain't how that's supposed to work.
No.
If he didn't grow up on your farm, you can't buy no cow from no industrialist and then label it as organic when it's been shot up with all that stuff before you bought it. All right, that's called willful oversight. Like a lot of the farmers know that it's cheaper to buy and sell cows as organic that's shot up with that stuff if they can keep them for 30, 60, 90 days before they can sell them. They'll just wait till it's time to go harvest and buy a couple hundred of them mugs, sell them for the price of the organic because they're going to raise the price on the good shit and lower the price on the bad shit so you can buy the bad shit because you can afford it better.
Right. That's how it is in the grocery store right now. All the bad stuff is cheap. All the good stuff is, oh, you ain't gonna, it's out of your price range. Right.
Yep.
Now, this is my next thing, Rod. Now, being that the United States Corps have been foreign occupations on our land, and they done pissed everybody else off. They done pissed the Koreans off, the Iranians. They done did something to everybody. Now, so being that, wow, if they attack our land, they attacking our land, not United States Corps. United States Corps.
They're not going to attack us because they know that the people, they know the organic people from over here don't got nothing to do with that.
Right.
But they've been doing their dirt in our name. We call that false flagging.
Yeah, false flagging.
You want to walk through GD neighborhood, you know you a stone, so you put on all blue and break your cap to the right until you get to that girl house, right? But in the meantime, you see a dude that's from your hood, then and you get in the fight with him trying to shut him up so nobody won't know you're not really folks. It's false flagging. He doing dirt in your name. That's why remember when they caught the FBI for trying to reignite the tribal war in Cali, when it was a party, it was a Crip party that they invited the blood set to. And the police came screaming out the blood set and started shooting.
I remember that.
But the leadership of the blood set was like, Crip, stand down, we got this. Shot the car up.
Yeah.
Coming to find, that's how we found out what they was doing. They was false flagging. They was keeping us fighting each other because we believe in this bullshit. We believe in that the neighboring tribe got a problem with us just because they are neighboring tribe. We supposed to respect their territory. They supposed to respect ours. And if we got a problem, we supposed to run that fade. But they teaching us to kill each other about it.
Right.
You know, so this is how they've been using infiltration, divide and conquer, Hegelian dialectic can control us because we're not really realizing that they turn us against us to keep them in power.
Wow.
Right.
Divide and conquer.
Look, the pale face didn't come over here to oppress us. They came over here oppressed. Let that sink in.
By the Moors.
They came over here as exiles from their homeland. Right. America always took the world's orphans in.
Right.
Go back to ODB. ODB say every baby in the world is mine, even if I don't know their name. That's tribal shit from over here. We the only land where that's the tribal norm. We've been doing it since Atlantis.
Right.
Right? You get in trouble, you go back to Big Mama house. Where Big Mama house? Turtle Island. Everybody knew that. That's why the Vikings brought Scotia and Scotia over here when the hostility and the assassination was on their head.
Makes sense.
Right? They knew where to take them because you weren't supposed to come over here with the shenanigans. You come over here, you worship under your own vine and fig tree, and you stay out of other folks' business. Man your business, stay in your lane, and you won't get ran off the road.
Mm-hmm. Hey, we almost at that time. Hey, we'll take about 2-3 more questions.
Yep. Hey, Elder, while you waiting on the next question, I need you to explain something to the people. Because people using Nuwapic terms out of context. So I want you to explain what Rahubat is and what Wadu mean.
Rahubat is like a greetings, like it's kind of like peace be unto you, like assalamu alaikum, kind of like that. Like it's in the same context of like a greetings, a peaceful greetings. And then Wadu is like a peaceful goodbye, or it's not like like see you later. It's kind of like see you later, but it's not in that context. It's like like have a nice day type of thing. Wadu, right? That's what that means.
Yeah.
Right. So Wabat means like peace, peace and love, like greetings. And then Wadu is like, goodbye. See you
We
later.
leave this place together in peace and love. Something like
we
that.
shall meet again. We shall meet again. Like it ain't like goodbye. Well, I won't see you no more. It's goodbye. We shall meet again. Like that type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple, terms like
wait,
that.
another question I had. You got any updates on Larry?
We got no updates on none of the Chiefs right now. But they always fighting for their freedom.
We don't got no updates on Doc. Yeah. Now that's another thing. That's my question. Now, once these guys, like after this 4 years or whatever the time they were going out, how do we get the Chiefs out? Do they get released, or how does that work? How do the Chiefs get out after this?
Listen.
Okay.
When the power shift is solidified, they're gonna call Empress Redbird. They're gonna call Chief Warhorse, and it's a couple more tribal mothers. And then they're gonna ask them who is the council of chiefs, and is any of them held in captivity by the system, right? And then they're gonna say, yeah, a lot of the chiefs is incarcerated and can't perform their function. And then, like Empress Redbird might call me up to go over some of the chiefs, right? And so I would have to say, I would speak up for Larry, for Angel Bay, for Big Tookie. I speak up for all of the ones, Imam Jamal Alameen, Mumia from New Jersey. I speak up for Asada. She need to come home with state honors. So it's gonna be publicized. It's not gonna be no secret. Larry responsibility is to give this information back to the tribes. That's his job. He's the spokesman. He's the chairman of the board of chiefs. He's the one who's supposed to be telling everybody that Angel Bay is not a criminal. He's a soldier, the highest ranked soldier in Big Mama Army. And he is the right as a war chief to take us to war to get imposters off the land. Right? His job is to protect Middle America back to the East Coast. And Tukey, who they froze, and we thought they executed him, and they put him in cryostasis in Area 51. He's since been thawed out, and Larry gonna say Big Tukey is a war chief who's supposed to organize the tribes on the West Coast and take any motherfucker on the West Coast trying to assault us to war. Right. But you removed the chiefs before they became self-aware of who they were, and you held them in captivity away from their responsibility to the tribes.
Right.
Now you have to let them tell their story. So Larry know more chiefs than I know. Right? So Larry, as the chairman of the board, he gonna be rattling off a whole list of people. Some of them not locked up. A lot of them not locked up, but it's a lot of them locked up. But he gonna be going over the whole list. From El Chapo to high leadership in the Hells Angels and some of those other biker groups and all that. And they gonna all come out and support what he's saying because they already in the lock. They done already discussed it. They already know whose function is what. Right? The problem keep being the rank and file soldiers being idiots. The rank and file soldier being idiots and the infiltrators that's pretending to be rank and file to make sure that the idiocy causes them to do some idiotic shit.
They belligerent, man. They belligerent to our. They make it like we was living in teepees and we was walking around in thongs with spears over here. And when they came over here, we was well civilized more than them.
Look, I was talking about last night on my live. They tell y'all Levi Strauss. Levi and Strauss stole the patterns and how to make denim. They got that from New Orleans tribesmen from the Taylor family. You think they was called the Taylor family folk? The Taylor tribe. They used to make clothes. Like all of the that's how we supported the person that was the best at it. Everybody went to that person. This is how you created industry over here before colonization. So Mr. Taylor, Chief Taylor, he got his whole family working in the Taylor factory making clothes. And they all eat from Mr. Taylor. But every tribe that need a different type of garb, they go take the design to Mr. Taylor. He gonna have one of his sons or daughters look at it and they gonna take it and they gonna make you the prototype. And then if it looked like what you wanted it to look like, or if you needed adjustments, they make the adjustment. And then you say how many pair of these type of trousers you need, how many of these types of well, they call them ponchos, became dashikis. How many of these y'all need, right? All of this stuff, one family was the clothes maker for the whole land, but the family was big as hell. And they supported their little individual families from working with Big Papa.
It makes sense.
Right? The Smith family, the iron workers, right? You go to Mr. Smith, well, I want to melt down some gold. He gonna send you from Mr. Smith, gonna send you to the goldsmith, the specialist, the silversmith. These last names now. The Brian Smith. They all Smiths, but they got a different role to play in working with the metal. Right? So then you had the Greens, they come in, look at your land before we had lawns, and they determine the flora and fauna that you want. They help you to organize your natural growth cycles for your food. A lot of times they use the three sister method, where one food feed the other food, they feed the first food, and it's a cycle of that. So we always got something to eat. This was what we was doing before 1492. The elders know what I'm talking about. And a lot of the younger youth under 25, they get it. Yeah. It's the ones between 25 and 50 that need to get the fuck out the way. Right? If you don't know what you're doing, find somebody that know what they're doing and find out how you can help them. But don't nobody want to do that. Everybody want to be Big Chief. Everybody can't be Big Chief because ain't everybody don't have that same level of determination to find out how to heal the people on the land.
Right.
Big Chief that's his life purpose. He gonna pursue that shit like a ravenous pit bull in a fight.
Go ahead. No tail tucking.
No tail tucking. Tail straight up in the air, wagging the whole time.
Game.
I don't care if he's fighting another dog or a dragon. Tail up, baby. Let's get it.
Game dog. Right? What you call it? Game dog.
Right. Everybody want to be the leader, but don't want to go through the process of learning how to be the leader. You can't be the one to give in the orders if you can't take orders because you don't know the structure of orders.
Go ahead. That's fine.
You got to practice taking orders to learn how to give orders. Then that's how you're going to determine good orders from bad orders. Then you can tell the people, okay, we can't do that because it's dumb as fuck, first of all. Second of all, it's going to poison the water. So if we put that factory there and we putting that sludge in the water, we won't be able to drink out that river.
Out the water.
All right, that's a bad decision. In the matriarchy, the first thing they always ask when you come to them with a presentation for a new technology or something is the first two questions they always ask: how do it affect the children? How do it affect Mother Earth? If either one of them is bad, we can't do that.
Yeah.
Under the patriarchy, it's how much money can I make? Okay, now how much money can my son make? Them they first two questions. They don't got the same questions because they don't got the same temperament. They don't have the same emotional stability.
That's crazy.
They don't have the same foresight and concern and care for the people. That you can't be no chief and don't have no concern for the people, because the people gonna reject you, because you're gonna be doing selfish and greedy shit.
And the clan mother can vote you out. The clan mother
And
can vote you out.
they don't got your clan mother can oust your ass and appoint somebody in your place.
That's right.
Right? If she haven't seen the problem you causing, another clan mother will call a clan mother meeting to inform her with evidence. And she'll oust your ass after her sisters get done showing you the bullshit you did. They don't tolerate that. But this is how we get caught up in this quagmire of child trafficking, human trafficking, and exploitation of banking and commerce, exploitation, and just regular driving. Right? If it's nothing wrong if a tribe want to create traffic laws in their area, right? Ain't nothing wrong with that. And they had to have a means to enforce it. But come on, you can't entrap people. You can't have speed traps.
Yeah, hide in the bushes and then you jump out of nowhere and chasing me. I talking about I'm going 5 miles over.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it's certain stuff like the police sitting there and you make a left in a no left turn, he supposed to pull your ass over. That's how the tribes operate. But if ain't no police nowhere around and you make that left turn, somebody got to call and report you for them to say something.
Right.
They can't put a camera there. The camera can't testify in court. Yeah, I was on my job at that time, officer, or your honor. I was the camera on duty that day, and in my lenses, I picked up this dude turning left in the no left turn. The camera can't testify. You can't cross-examine a camera.
Right.
If you can't, okay, so then how do I know that your time and your date is accurate? Right? Oh, because I was just reprogrammed the other day. The camera can't tell you none of that. Right? So the police search for crime because they know the way that they govern the people is going to force them into criminal behavior.
That's right, man. That's deep what you just said right there.
It's sheep herding 101. It's sheep herding 101. If you put the barriers in the right places, you're going to steer the sheep in the area you want them to go. It's farming. It's just put on a national political level, but it's just still basic farming. They call it sociology when it deals with human, but it's still farming. The human just more evolved than the animals, but it's still farming.
Same mechanism.
Same mechanism.
Uh-huh. Hey, man, we got about 2,000 people on here, man. Everybody hit that like, hit that subscribe button. If you want to show Rod Hayes some love, he don't do it for the money, but everybody send him $1, man. Everybody send him $5 if you can. Right now to this Cash App on the screen. This is Rod Hayes' Cash App. If you want to show him some love, right there on the screen. Yeah, Rod, we about to get up out of here, man. We're gonna be back. We're at that 2-hour mark. We had 2 hours and 7 minutes, but this was a good one. Another one.
You know, we had to bring the heat tonight because
with them slides though. That way people can see the hands-on receipts, so they don't think that we be talking out the side of our neck what we be saying. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes it, you know.
And all of that stuff, they can go back and can ask Google what do it mean, and they're gonna tell you the same thing.
Right.
That's what you call a cursory, because it's like just skimming over something. It's way more detail behind those topics we touched on that the research will give you volumes of information on just following up on the research from the slides we put up. So that's why we teach the way we teach, because we have to make it a small enough bite where a 6-year-old can understand it, but it also has to have enough substance for a PhD to go and research it.
Right.
So we do it that way so that everybody have a different they can approach it at their own level and get what they can get from it at that point. But we go over the highlights. It's up to them to dig into the details. We tell you where we looking and what we see, and you get to say, what do it mean to you? and how do you see it? Because you might not see it how I see it or elders see it. But the city slicker and this country boy gonna get together to show y'all that we know how to communicate. Because I'm just a country boy in the city, right? So when the city slicker go to talking to that country boy, I remember my past lives as being a country boy. I remember my big mama in New Orleans, and I can't wait to get there because she keep that sweet cornbread squares covered up in that bowl on the counter next to them drumsticks and chicken wings in that basket. They got a towel over them because we had no aluminum foil yet.
Right. And
she put a towel over it.
Yeah, that black
she put it. Yeah, she put it in a bowl. Back then we had wooden and glass bowls. We didn't have plastic bowls.
Right.
So it'd be a big ass wooden bowl with some brown paper at the bottom of it, with a pile of chicken in one bowl. That's for the visitors that come through. They cooking chicken like that every day. We ain't had no McDonald's. We ain't had no Frito-Lays. Instead of potato chips, they fry the potatoes up in big old chunks. We ain't no potato chips and give them to you in a little wooden bowl. Now run outside with that and eat it and play. They give you a bowl of fruit. They been clean the fruit, chop the fruit up. You was getting fruit salad all the time as a baby.
Yep.
Now we getting ice cream and cake, right? But we had a different life was so much different back then than it is now. Most people don't even know it was a time when there was no such thing as a potato chip. They can't even fathom potato chips ain't even 100 years old.
Go ahead.
They don't even know that. They think we've had bags of potato chips for thousands of years. We had different food stock, right? Wasn't no Doritos, right? In the Southwest, they used to make those chips out of frying the tortillas, right? And then you use that to dip it into your guacamole or your salsa.
Man, so good. I like Mexican
right?
food.
But we be thinking that Doritos has always been here.
Yeah.
Right? I remember the introduction of the whatchamacallit candy bar when it first came out when I was a little boy. Because I couldn't wait to go get one because the commercial made it look so good. Right? But we think we eating chocolate. Real chocolate tastes so much better and fluffier than this waxy shit we eating now. And it melts in your mouth. And this is why they sell all of the good chocolate over in Europe.
Yeah.
And they sell us what's called the scrap chocolate. You can go check it out. I'm not making this shit up.
You ain't lying. I taste the real chocolate and it ain't nothing like
this shit ain't no motherfucking chocolate. It's chocolate flavor, but it's too waxy.
Yeah.
Right. But we don't know that. Right. Most of us don't know vanilla ain't white or yellow. Vanilla look dark like chocolate until you bleach it.
That's right.
But we don't know that.
Damn, bro.
All of this stuff. Look, we used to have walnut trees in the backyard, and we used to throw the walnut up like they look like a little baseball before you pull the skin off the walnut. The walnut is the seed. Mm-hmm. Pecan trees. We used to have pecan fights with the whole pecan fruit, not just the seed. Right? And that was fun for us. Climbing in the trees to get persimmons. The people down south know what I'm talking about in some of the islands, but most of us in the north or in the west desert area, we don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Yeah. Unless your people from that area.
Yeah, see, I came up right in that last little line of seeing the sugar cane and all it. Yeah.
Yeah. Real everybody had fruit trees in their yard. Yeah. You couldn't go to two people's house and one of them not have a fruit tree. They might have a different fruit, but everybody had fruit trees in their yard.
That's right.
And we didn't have to go in this. You be using that stuff all winter long. Because the fruits was plentiful before they started chopping down all the damn trees all willy-nilly, trying to starve us into the grocery store. Now you only had trees growing on orchards now. Mm-hmm. Apple orchard, peach orchards. orange orchards, and them the farms that produced the tree. Man, we had that shit everywhere. Everywhere it was hot, you had an orange tree.
Right.
Right. And the oranges was always sweeter than we think they sweet now because they inject them with fructose or sucrose to make them sweeter. But when the fruit, when it was organic and it was being grown in the local area, the fruit tastes so much better. The vegetables taste so much better. Why do you think kids don't like vegetables now? Because they got so many impurities in them.
That's right. They ain't so
Back
right.
then, we used to walk around eating a rutabaga, an eggplant, just eating it like nothing. But now you can't eat that shit like that. That shit be nasty, bitter,
Man.
right? Because they didn't put so many chemicals in it. Mama got to cook that shit off. So she gonna cook it long and slow to cook the poisonous impurities off, and we gonna call it soul food because she know how to make it taste good.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, all this stuff, man, like the Pittman family, them was barbecue specialists, pit masters. They used to have family motherfucking barbecue wars. A whole family coming from all over the country. Pittman's throwing the barbecue. Every Pittman in the country going down there. I'm the best barbecue in the Pittman family. No, you ain't. I am. And then they start throwing down. We think that that's some new shit. We've been doing that shit since ancient times. Where do you think burnt offerings come from? From barbecuing. And the sweet sin of the burnt offering went up, and he said, "Oh, I gotta have a piece of that barbecue they barbecuing down there." The Pittman family, the Red Devil, right? They used to call them names like Dirty Red, Dusty Red. You know what I'm saying? All because all them niggas was like my complexion with auburn red hair.
Mississippi red clay dirt, baby.
Yeah, they look just like you. If they blend in with the dirt, if you lay them on it.
Yeah.
That was the Pittman family. Right? Then you had the cooks. They used to be the chefs that do the cook-offs. And, they had family all over the country because their daughter married that tribe over there. And now she raised a son to be a cook. But his last name ain't Cook no more. He's Jefferson now. Because he's Jeff's son. I mean, we all got tricked.
Man, did we, Rod?
We all got tricked. But we never left the land and our culture's still intact. They say we didn't have no culture to show who we are. Bullshit. The musical culture of America that influenced the world go all the way back to Atlantis.
Go ahead.
The Mississippi Delta Blues, the love songs, the apology songs for doing your woman wrong and breaking her heart and making her cry and you love her. All that Mississippi Delta Blues. That I'm a bad man Delta Blues. I walk around with my 44 so long that my shoulder got so blues. It became braggadocious battle rap, gangster rap. So we still following our culture. It's just that we still use it so much that we can't see that it's our culture.
That's cold. It's deep.
If they got it branded as Americanism. And it come from us because every time a new trend starts, where do it start? Do it start in the suburbs?
Yeah.
Do it start in an upper class society? Or do it start from the grassroots, from the dirt, where we get it from?
Where we get it from.
Every time. New dance crazes come from the dirt. Look, the little kids in the neighborhood getting together, making up dances, and the other song about it. A new dance craze pop up. Right? We tell stories in the music. It never changed. Right? Remember the hadith about Muhammad asking for the duffs? The drums. Right? The drum is one of the most defining musical instruments in the history of the world. We was beating them in Atlantis. right? Ice skating come from Atlantis, which produced roller skating. Ballet come from Atlantis. They used to use the streamers and do ballet with them and all that kind of stuff. Gymnastics. Gymnastics was because the girl is a tomboy and you want her to remain feminine as she go through her phase. You put her ass in gymnastics so she ain't turning into a boy.
Mm.
Right?
Makes sense.
And the boy, he too masculine. He got too much energy. You put him in gymnastics so you can turn that shit down some. That aggression, you got to turn it down. But you got the lesser aggressive boys that, you know, they kind of rough and tumble, but you put them in organized sports to let them learn to control the aggression. All this stuff is ancient. Ain't none of this shit, ain't nothing new under the sun. That statement is not haphazard. There's nothing new under the sun.
Christopher Columbus said when he got over here, he saw us playing football and basketball, and they was playing with rubber balls and all this.
Well, he's seen us playing ball, but basketball, we didn't play it like we play it now, but we still had a similar game.
Yeah.
You know,
it all
soccer.
come up, like the origin of the rubber ball and all that. He said he saw us with that rubber ball.
We always we had so many different ball games, man. You would have every tribe used to make up a game and write the rules. This is where the whole ball sport organized structure come from, the tribes.
Yeah. Yeah, we had it over here already in America.
They didn't have rugby in Europe until we had football in America.
Yeah.
They didn't have cricket in Europe till we had baseball in America.
Yeah.
And soccer is a spinoff from football. Yeah. Right? One is played with the oblong ball. Yeah. The other one played with a round ball.
Yeah.
And they haven't duplicated. Yep. Last thing, they haven't duplicated basketball yet. They haven't came up with. They have to keep basketball.
Yeah.
You know. But that's all I got for today, Elder. I hope people learn something today.
Thank you for coming out to kick it with us, man. Hey, y'all, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. Like I said, if you want to show Rod some love, we got that Cash App on the screen right there. We'll be back, y'all. We'll be back with another one because I got tapes coming out every day. So it's something coming out. We already got some uploaded for tomorrow to come out. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, so, speaking of tomorrow, I got Floor Burn tomorrow evening, y'all. I think at 9 o'clock on YouTube. So check out Floor Burn.
Hey, send me the link when you about to go live. I'll share it on my page when you
okay.
Okay, yeah. All right, so y'all, look, man, we love y'all. Peace and love. Free all our political prisoners that's been the prisoners of war right now. And we gonna win, y'all. We already won. In fact, you know what I'm saying? We already won. Right? Because if you spin now backwards, it's won, baby. All right, so we out of here, y'all. We love y'all. Peace and love. We send divine love throughout the boundless universe to all. Wadu.